All right, thanks again for staying with me on the show, TMI, lovely Monday morning. Well, we're still in the euphoria created by the Independence Anniversary, which of course held on Saturday. For those who couldn't celebrate Saturday, you can do that today. And if you celebrated Saturday through Sunday, maybe you just lounge today, rest today. So that's what you're supposed to do. Anyways, I've got with me in the studio former two-time commissioner in Edo State, Dr. Washington Osifo. Many thanks for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
We also have with us here in the studio the Executive Director, Canvassers for Democracy and Rule of Law, who is also the Senior Pastor of Hill City Christian Center, Reverend Olu Martins. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good, I'm lounging. Good morning.
Okay. When we celebrate Nigeria's independence anniversary, one thing that always strikes me is the fact that the issues keep reoccurring. Issue of poverty, issue of youth unemployment, issue of power, issue of lack of democracy, internal democracies in political parties, issue of bad leadership. I mean, we could just go on and on and on. These things keep coming up and staying at the front burners in the conversation as it relates to Nigeria's independence anniversary celebration. When will this end, Barrister Washington? Let's start off from there.
Well, I thank you for having me again, and again, good morning, viewers. You know, the reality is that it's over time we have come to know that this is our national life, and the reason why we are still struggling is because I think we have not had the courage to fight it, you know, head on. For instance, when we were crying for the need to bet democracy in 1999, we had it against the military juntas. And we felt that democracy, when you hoist that flag, it will bring about Eldorado in Nigeria. But I think what we have seen between 1999 and today is that there is no proper structure that can galvanize that bulwark, you know, that will put before us a better day and even a greater tomorrow. So I think, you know, there must be a structural adjustment if we need to move on. There must not be sentiment, you know, in making your choice if you need to move on. You must do things differently to get a different result if we want to not only defeat, or not only detain, but defeat, you know, our past and put before us a greater tomorrow. You must not take decision in anger. You must not take decision out of emotion. You must not take decision out of jealousy. You must do it not even for yourself. You must not be selfish about it. You must be holistic, and you must be altruistic in taking a decision. That way, and that way alone, shall we begin to really set up structures that will herald a better tomorrow.
Okay, Olu Martins, let's get to take your perspectives on this. I mean, we just have these issues. They are recurring decimals. I mean, they are as recurring as the independence anniversary, without headways, without solutions, without insights on how these issues can be handled.
Again, good morning. Thank you for having me. And let me congratulate you on your award. I'm sure you probably have a room of awards now. Award room.
Thank you.
Very clearly, as a nation, we're not growing. Well, maybe we're growing old and we're not growing up.
We're growing old.
We're not growing
we're
up.
Not growing up.
Because there are two different things entirely. There's maturity age, there's chronological age. And some people are adding chronology, but they're not maturing. Have you seen some human beings who, after 10 years, they do the same thing? Just like the Honorable Commissioner Emeritus was saying. They still get as angry as they get. They still get as upset as they get. They still use the same language that they have used 5 years ago. They're still as irrational. They still act as berserk as they do. So you just tell you that this person is not growing up as an individual. He's simply counting years. He is not counting wisdom. And that's what is happening in Nigeria. Because the founding fathers of our country, 62 years ago, moved the motion for Nigeria's independence. And that was because they thought that we had matured enough to manage our own common patrimony. They thought that we are mature enough to leave the tutelage, or if you wanted to use Bible language, leave the schoolmaster of the white man. But 62 years after, we have sugar cane, we can't turn to sugar. We have cotton, we can't turn to cloth. We have recycled the same leadership, because it's only in Nigeria I always say that you have the worst of people presiding over the best of people. Politicians in Nigeria make promises without purpose behind the promise. So clearly is that there's no time that we will not, rigmarole and have reoccurring, destiny, because we have people who think that Nigeria belongs to them. Nigeria is an extension of their private estates, and for them, access to power is not to advance the individuals, but to advance their own small estate that they have. So according to fellow Nicola Pokuti, which is not what we have quoted, he said, if I sing, say food, no, they say, now old news be that. I sing, say water, no, they. Now old news be that. So Nigeria has found itself in the same place because we have leadership who don't have the capacity to share the ship of state. I have done a study of many Nigerian organizations, and you'll find out that none of them, we don't have an organization that is indigenously Nigeria that has existed for 50 years. And that is because usually the CEO or the chairman began the organization with 10 people. Okay. It grew to 50. Okay. He didn't increase capacity. He didn't go for refresher course. The ideas and the ideals that he had when the company started with 10 people are the ideas that he holds. He is still holding. The company matures to 100 people. And instead of him to realize that his perspective to leadership and organization has become anachronistic because the world is dynamic. Yeah. He sits put there. When people begin to generate new ideas, he leads by intimidation, he leads by fear, he leads by harassment, he leads by threats. At the end of the day, there's rebellion within the system. And if people don't leave the system, what will happen is that the system will retrogress, which is happening to Nigeria. Many of our Nigerian leaders don't understand that the world has become dynamic. We're in the information age where leadership now is not by what you knew 50 years ago. It's not by what you knew 40 years ago. Leadership now is what you know today and today. And if you look at most of our leaders, without apology, many people have not gone for refresher course. Many people have not educated themselves. I've been on air a couple of times, at least 2 years ago, when it was Barrister Washington Osifu. Yes, now he's doctor. What it means is that
he has upgraded.
He has upgraded himself,
value.
But leadership does not upgrade. And unfortunately, if you don't know more than your followers, you lead by intimidation, you lead by fear, you lead by threat. That's because you don't understand that people want to be inspired and do not want to be commanded. Nigerians know more than their leaders. So they lead us by threat, they lead us by, instead of wanting to get to our hearts by the ballot, they want to get there by, the bullet. So until we're able to tinker with our leadership style and our leadership structure, likely is that we'll still be singing the same song.
All right. Like they always say, we know our problems, but pathing solution has always been a major challenge. I said that to say this. I've heard people say this, that 2023 is just around the corner, provides another opportunity for Nigerians to right the wrongs of the past, set us on a new pedestal of peace, progress, development, like we always wanted. Do you subscribe to this? How feasible is this, Mr. Washington?
Yes, the beauty of democracy is that it offers you at every 4 years periodic election, and what that means is that it gives you opportunity to make a choice. But before you make a choice, you must understand the issues. And when you understand the issues, you must divest it from emotions. And when emotions, you are not able to divest it from emotions, then you may also continue to make choice on the path of emotion, which may never lead to anything good about it. Okay. I think the practical decision, the practical step we must take is to make a choice on the basis of capacity, not ethnicity, not religion. If it is made on who knows, who understands the issue, who knows how to deal with the issues, and you know, who within a space of 4 years, which is the first, period that is given, you know, there must be a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term to deal with the issues. Yes, then we would have gotten it right. But one thing I am not too sure, as it is today, just like my brother said, I am worried. Yes, I'm worried because I don't like a situation where I see myself dancing around like a merry-go-round, you know. What I don't want to see, what I worked against so that I can see a better tomorrow, I keep seeing them. And I have seen a people. Let me just add something to it. It's not only the leaders. No. I would blame the people more than the leaders. I'm telling you. I am a participant observer. I have contested elections. I have supported those who contested elections. I have preached to the people. I have brought before them issues that detain us as a people and what we need to do to defeat those issues. And I have gone ahead to give them the practicability of what can be done. But one thing is when it's time to make a choice, they go contrary to your views. They will say, we understand. Yes, what you are saying is
correct.
It's doable. I know. But so, for this XYZ,
we are doing it this way.
You see, they are detained by poverty. They are detained by their emotions. They are detained by even the environment. Manifestly clear.
But leadership created that poverty, or not only created it, has continued to sustain that poverty that has held them held them to the ground, to the point that they cannot be independent-minded. They are just thinking about what they can get in the immediate. That's the reason why people blame leadership alone. Yes.
When a man is sick, a man that is well needs no physician, but he that is sick. Now, if you are sick, you don't need a doctor to tell you that you are sick. You are the one who will approach a doctor to say, I'm sick. Then the doctor will do a physical examination. If possible, take it beyond physical examination to forensic examination and tell you, yes, confirm it that you are sick and prescribe medication. Then after prescribing it, you decide not to take it. Either of two things will happen. There will be an extension or protraction of the sickness, and it may eventually lead to death. Therefore, you will blame the doctor. Okay? Now, it is trite. What is key now that we know is that there are issues with leadership. Who knows that there are issues with leadership? The same people we are talking about. What are the people doing about it? That is the question. And I am telling you, as a participant observer, that I haven't contested election, and I haven't supported people who contested election. And I have seen the gaps between what one can do and what the other one cannot do.
Okay.
I have seen the gaps between who is preaching emotion and who is preaching reality. And I've also seen that what detains the people is the ability to come out from those primordial sentiments and make a choice that will rescue them from their detention into a state, of Eldorado that they want to see. Look, I come from a community, and I'll continue to say that. In my community, for the past 4 or 5 years, there are no pathways to it. I come from a community where you practically, we are agrarian in nature. We practically will struggle, do everything to bring our crops out, even when we have been able to farm. And these are issues that must be on the front burner when you are campaigning as a party man, either for your party or against whatever.
Yeah.
But when the people you want to liberate, they see it, that there are no roads, no lights, no water, nothing, apart from what you have done. And even what you have done it, you need time to continue to do it so that you can improve on it. And they say, no, that's not what we are doing now. For XYZ extraneous factors, even against yourself, you will rule against yourself, and you will tell me.
Okay.
It can be very frustrating.
Okay.
Now, for me,
Yeah.
I want to tell you,
Yeah.
until and unless I will maintain this, I have seen what is happening from political parties crisscrossing, and I've read what people say about candidates.
Yeah.
And I'm asking myself, are we not about to make the same mistake? I have seen anger, emotions, quarrel, hatred, taking the front seat and driving the process. I am yet to understand in the series of analysis why people are supporting, other than it is not the turn of this, it should be the turn of this. It is not Yoruba, it is Hausa, it is not Hausa, it is Igbo. It is not North, it is South. These are issues that have detained us over time, and I see them detaining us again.
Okay.
Except and unless we understand
Yeah.
that capacity to deliver, capacity to identify, capacity to recognize. And I have also seen politicians have given us fine words for food. What they do is that they remind you of what you already know, which are the problems. What they don't tell you is how they will solve it. And what Nigerians just want to hear is that, yeah, you know what they are going through, and you sympathize with them. We don't need sympathy. We need empathy. We don't need to be reminded. We need to hear what you can do and do differently. We want to see practical reality. We want to see you understanding the issues, taking us through the issues, and landing us where you want to be, simultaneously, seamlessly.
Okay, let me get your perspective on this. The feeling that 2023 could just be another point to change the narratives of the country with the people taking ownership. Some say the youths are already leading in that direction. You subscribe to this?
I subscribe 110%. And just again, to draw my inspiration from the medical analogy of a lawyer. And this is with due respect to his PhD. A body sickness is different from a mental sickness. Because a body sickness is instantaneous. A mental sickness is a process. Behavioral patterns is not like malaria or typhoid fever. Malaria or typhoid fever can hit you now and then. And then you can decide to take the decision to take your medicine or not, it's difficult. You can say, I don't want to. But behavior over time becomes ingrained. That's why some people, some 60 years ago, thought it made sense to kill albinos. Some people thought it was sensible, it was evil to have twins, and they killed them. It's behavior. And the problem with behavioral pattern, it becomes cultural, and culture is stronger than the law. And that's why when people say, I blame the people, I say it's difficult for me. Because all over the world, people have principles of leadership, people have identified the fact that 80% of society are conformist. In other words, there's an 80-20 rule. 20 people would always have 20% of leaders that will lead the 80 people out of the woods. And that's why Booker T. Washington says, nature scatters in every generation. Men and women who must take charge of the destinies of others and turn it around for good. Look at the evolution of nations. American Industrial Revolution, the French Revolution, even Ghana Revolution here. It took an individual who galvanized the people. Even in South Africa, it always takes an individual. When you want change from bottom up, you'll have what is happening in the Arab Spring, because change is always from top to bottom. So when they blame the young people, one of my thesis was on tertiary institutions, crisis in tertiary institutions in Nigeria. And I found that the first University of Ibadan had crisis was in 1976, simply because they divided a piece of chicken into 4 instead of into 2. That's why. When we went to school, we didn't even see the fowl, the leg of the chicken, how much less. But that was what the crisis was. So you can imagine, look at universities that, fortunately, were all alma maters of the same. Look at universities that we went through. Clustered classes, leaking roofs.
No water.
No water.
No
we
light.
sat on the floor. What kind of product can you bring out of that university that we contest favorably? Universities that our forefathers went to. No matter how genuine you want to be, it's difficult to drink sachet water that is located in the same place as in a burial ground or in some filthy place. No matter the NAFDAC number that you have. In other words, your environment creates the product. So the way people are behaving today is a function of the environment that was created and reinforced over time. What nation will remove history from their studies? So we have created the animals that we're having to deal with today. And that's why Wolo was said, the children of the less privileged that you don't train yesterday will contend, how be it, violently and ferociously with your children that that you have trained. And that is exactly what is happening today. So the way people are behaving today, unfortunately, was introduced, reinforced, sponsored, orchestrated by leadership. And that's why all over the world, it is leadership. Leadership will always be the one to blame. And that's what has happened to Nigerian people. Nigerian people have come to say, you know what? We have looked at the couple of people who are there and want to take ownership of the process. Indeed, democracy says a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. If the people have become stereotyped in their thinking, it's because we have left them to be so. I usually tell people in church, the reason why Eve went to talk to the serpent is perhaps Adam wasn't talking to her. So if you don't talk to people, people are going to fill in the blank spaces. Leadership in Nigeria is not communicating. So people fill in the blank spaces, make their conjectures and conclusions by themselves. And when they behave in a particular way, you cannot blame them. They call communication and fulfilling the aspirations of the people is the reason why it's called representative democracy. So we must conclude, therefore, by saying the youth have decided. And how be it, whether rightly or wrongly, they are decided and they are determined. And it was reflected almost 15 states across the state. For the first time in Nigeria's history, people were not talking about Nigeria. People were talking about a change, a desired change, and perhaps to add, an overdue change.
Thank you very much, Reverend Olu Martins. If you just join us, it's TMI Monday, Nigeria at 62. I was thinking if we have the time, probably open our studio line so you can also share your thoughts, your views, your perspectives on Nigeria at 62. But let's see how we can run with that in the course of the program. Let me get back to our panelists here in the studio, Mr. Washington. Quickly talk to me about the major issues that will shape the 2023 elections. You've already given us your perspective in that direction, that you are concerned about the fact that the communications hovers around ethnicity, religion, region, south, north, south dichotomy, or south-north dichotomy, and all of that. But there are more germane issues that should shape this election. What are your thoughts?
You know, without taking it too further, the issue of economy, the issue of security, the issue of basically economy and security. Now, we must identify who can, who will, and who should. Now, we must not situate it around what happens in Nigeria alone. We must situate it within the global context.
Okay.
Situating it within the global context, because if you look at it, any country that is having an election, the entire world is concerned.
Yeah.
I listened to what the former president of the United States of America, in the person of Obama, said. President Obama said, when he was admonishing Nigerians and the lead and the leadership on what to do and how to go about it. And he said, we must eschew violence, go for our very best. Okay? Now, in doing that, the economy of the world has nosedived, arising from series of issues that devil this world, you know, and it's still going on.
Yeah.
Now, we must think of this. When I listen to international media, I've had cause to believe that recession is coming in again, from Asia to Europe to America and all of that. And Nigeria doesn't exist in its world.
In isolation, yeah.
In isolation.
Yeah.
So we need somebody who understands the global economy. Because without the global economy, you cannot realize your potentials as a country, because no country exists alone. So that is it. So it will be decided, and it should be decided on the basis of these two key points. Now, which is economy and security. Now, if you talk about this, thank God, I didn't want to really go into the basis of politics. We want to discuss Nigeria, as it were. But since my brother has come in through an angle when he talked about 15 states, I know exactly what he's talking about. So I think I want to engage him in that direction. But let me say that I will not want to degenerate to the level where I hear people on the media, you know, when they go as spokesmen or spokespersons of political parties or of candidates, they abuse themselves. And at the end of the day, they end up living there without saying anything, making anything.
Absolutely.
They take the shine off those they are supposed to come and represent. They use it as a basis to settle old scores.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't make sense. They deride themselves and make themselves look so cheap. So I wouldn't want to degenerate to that extent. But what I want to say is this, which is simple. Like I said, thank God, the leading aspirants or candidates from the four leading political parties, although I hate to just talk about these four.
Because there are about 18 of them. There are about 18 of them. Why should we
not really talk about all of them?
Yes.
Why should we not really I have seen, and that is why I said that, look, I don't see anything being different from where we are coming from.
Well, isn't this about visibility?
And the reason is this.
Yeah.
When a couple of few years ago, before we passed into law, the Not Too Young to Run bill, which is an act now, I saw the enthusiasm from the youth, from the people. And I just thought that they were going or walking towards a situation where we will have a 35-year-old, at most 40-year-old as president, within the range of...
When you fix
but today,
100 million naira to buy nomination form.
Excuse me. Well, no, you see, when you talk about fixing 100 million naira to buy from, it's an option. If they fix that in APC or PDP or any other political party, but certainly not one of the other 18.
Okay.
There are political parties where these forms are free. Okay, so we cannot use that as an excuse that APC or PDP or whatever fix their, to reduce the number of persons. And at the end of the day, you will say, what about other political parties? Okay. That is the question. Okay. So what defeats the purpose of this not too young to run, which we all labored for, we pushed for, and at the end of the day, the president gave it to us. The question is, why is nobody's talking about it today? And if you look at the circle of those that are contesting today in the leading political party, no youth, none of them is a youth. And this same youth, when you say youth,
that's at the executive level. You have not cascaded to the legislative level.
Listen, the youth must not be pinned to that executive legislative level alone. Okay. No, that is what we're getting.
But it could be a starting point.
Nobody says it cannot start with all.
Okay.
They cannot be detained to a second position if they can have the first. And the question is this is where we're also getting it wrong. Only yesterday, we all were talking about it. And you said the youth are taking over. What are we talking about? The youth is setting an agenda for tomorrow. Now, the not too young to run bill, as it were, which is now an act, has been jettisoned, and the youth is no longer talking about the youth. I have seen there's a youth there that has 2 PhDs talking about working on yourself and empowering yourself mentally and along that line. I have seen 2 PhDs from this Edo state here, less than 40. Nobody is talking about him. Now you put what is not important on the front burner. Why are the youths not rallying around this, even from Edo state here? Because we will be the first to condemn the youth. Why are we not realistic?
Okay.
Why are we not realistic? So for me, it is not about sentiment. It is about what they have done that I have seen, I have read through, what they can do, who is sincere, and what they cannot do.
Is there any positive pullout from what they've done that you've seen, that you've read?
Now,
any positive pullout?
For instance, there are 4 states that will be in contention here, arising from the 4 leading candidates. If you talk about Kwankwaso, Kano, of course you know Kano. If you talk about Obi, Anambra, if you talk about Atiku, Adamawa, and if you talk about Bat, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Lagos. Now, in today's reality, talking about structure, talking about consistency, you don't need to, I don't need to tell you, neither do I need to tell Nigerians, the state that has been consistent in terms of where we met it, taking it from where we met it, okay, to where we wanted it to be at that spot, remaining there and projecting a structure that will take it out of, maintain the structure we have kept up to today. Lagos continue to be a centerpiece of attraction in Nigeria. Yeah. Now, if you also want to analyze their personality, then you cannot tell who did what, when, and how. We know the one that fought to even defeat the federal government against sustaining the local government, which is the most important tier of government to the people, which is the closest part of the world. Despite what the government did at that time, against an opposition to frustrate it, a determined personality used the resources of the state, despite the government of the federation seizing its allocation, to develop, create, and develop it into development centers when it was denied the opportunity to create it as a local government. We know that that government fought for, devolution of powers. We know that government fought for creation of state police that will galvanize security. And we know that government is still fighting for that devolution of power today. Now, let's go to Anambra. You are aware in Anambra that within that period, no local government election was conducted for 7 years. Now, when you don't do that, you emasculate, you take away the rights of the people. One in Lagos was fighting not to conduct election, has conducted election, but to expand it, break it into smaller units and expand it. The federal government fought it, and at the end of the day, it used the internal revenue of the state to create that buffer. Okay. Then the other one was killing it.
Yes.
Now, if you go to Kano,
Yes.
you will see what
Kwankwaso did.
Kwankwaso did. Fantastic. He did very well.
And then Atiku.
Atiku was never governor,
Oh.
but Atiku was vice president. And I don't also believe when people say, "Oh, Atiku was Atiku
rebellious."
No.
I'm asking a question.
I don't want to go with the part of rebellious. I'm telling you, I am not here to castigate anybody.
All right, let me pause you, Mr. Washington.
Yeah,
quickly I got the point because I'm paused for time.
Let me quickly say this about Atiku.
Yeah.
Atiku, I will not be fair if I don't say something about it.
Did you go ahead?
Atiku Abubakar was the vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He worked with Obasanjo. He did his best. And I also know that he did his best. He may not be in the same political party, but I give it to him, he did his best. He has capacity. Just like his brother, age cannot be a determining factor.
All right, let me get Reverend Olumartins. How do you distill all of these issues about key factors that ought to shape this election, that should shape this election? What are the positive pullouts or negative pullouts from this coalition, this so-called movement that is ongoing? And I want you to look at Nigeria of maybe 1999, Nigeria of 2022, leading into 2023. Quickly, as we call it a wrap.
Thank you very much. Let me say that we do not fear to negotiate, and we do not negotiate out of fear. I'm sure that at the appropriate time, we would have a more robust platform where we can do comparison and all of that. Fortunately, I was born in Lagos, so I know Lagos had the back of my hand, and I know potentials that Lagos had before 1999. But again, those are issues for another day's discussion. I'm sure that neither I nor Dr. Washington. So I always like to add doctor. The reason is because we must let people know that their academic ascension must also match, how, So if doctor would have been angry with me after, and now that he's doctor, he will probably say, no, you spoke well. But that's on the lighter side. However, sir, Nigerians are the easiest people to convince. Very easy people. Margaret Thatcher said it. Because we seem to be people that you push us to the wall, we leap over the wall, except in this particular, instance now, that Nigerians have decided that they are not going to leap over the wall, they're going to fight, so to speak. Very easy people. We're not asking for too much. Look, the responsibility of government is to do the greatest good for the greatest number of people within the shortest possible time. Nigerians don't even really care about the optics of economics and all of that. We just want to be able to buy bread that is affordable for the average man. And like Thomas Sankara said, we want table water for all instead of champagne for a few. Because in spite of what is going on, Nigerians are still celebrating, like Fela said, suffering and smiling. But beyond what people have done, because governance is both intangibles and the intangibles. And that's why the 3 C's of leadership talks about competence, capacity, and character. And a lot of time we talk about roads and what people have done. We have forgotten to point to the character of those individuals. I dare say, sir, that the new Nigerian youth is looking for new role models. These role models that we have today, who we cannot identify their genealogy, who many of them are borrowing his word, trapped within the confines of how they got their stupendous wealth today, that they are flamboyantly flashing before us. On national television, they were asking Poppy, how rich is your principal, sir? And we saw a bullion van in his compound, and nobody could answer that. Those are the things that promote Yahoo boys. Somebody was saying, when it was Yahoo boy, one of them was arguing with me, so I gotta leave them. It is because we can now, quote unquote, drag girlfriends with them. If a politician can give 30,000, I can give more than that. That's why they are doing the way they are. Because when you have leadership that does not have character and overtly demonstrate that they have no character, you have somebody who was just managing. He becomes a local government chairman. He has a large expanse of land. Even when he has done well for his people, we must ask for his character. So we must also begin to talk about the intangibles. The intangibles must affect Peter Obi. The intangibles must affect Tinubu. The intangible must affect Kwakwanso. And let me quickly say something about the youth. Youth is not a virtue. What people want is to be able to find an individual that represents their aspirations. If you represent my aspirations, both in content and character, I will identify with you. In South Africa, there were youth when people rallied around a young man who was in prison for 27 years, and even when he got out, the majority of the youth still rallied around him and say, come and be our president, because he represented their ideals. I don't know if Moses was a young man when he led, the people out. So these issues must be about where are you coming from? Where are you going to? What role models are you for us? Because the Nigeria of 1999 is not the Nigeria of today. And what has crossed the fundamental difference are these small gadgets that you put now, that we have in our hands. You can't lie to us anymore. We will store it. You can't Photoshop to us anymore. We will decipher it. You can't give up propaganda anymore. We will go back to your past. And remember when you stood with somebody and recommended him as the best presidential candidate. This information age is going to be difficult for people. Fortunately, INEC is also deploring, the information age. So we must have people who are current, who understand, like he said, what, the issues are. But above all, which is my greatest desire, is that we must have role models. We can't have politicians intimidating us, on highways with the way they drive. Because if you don't have role models, if you don't have a conservative leader who has demonstrated that he is one of us, and that because he's in public office doesn't make him a superstar, if you don't have those demonstrations, people are going to think that the easiest route to becoming a rich man is to enter into politics. Look at people today who have led political office, who have appropriated to themselves. 300% of what they were earning. The state bought houses for them in Lagos and in Abuja. Somebody left office, and as we speak today, he boastfully says it, I have not benefited 1 naira from the state that I am in. So it's not just about the infrastructure as much as it is important. We must also talk about the infrastructure of the mind, because if you don't equip the mind, you will build bridges, and unfortunately, people will go there and remove the railings of the bridges that you built for them to benefit from.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. I mean, time is always a factor when you have conversations of this nature, but I promise you, we're going to have Dr. Washington Osaosifo here again, and Reverend Olu Martins, just the two of them, because there's a part of this conversation that I want us to bring to conclusion. But that will come. We'll have plenty of time to do that in the build up to the 2023
election. Just let me know so I can bring a helmet on my wig.
It's the TMI, lovely.
No, you are equipped already now. You have a posse helmet.
We'll take a short break.